So I know there's a lot of hate with AI right now, and with good reason, but I'm going to share an unpopular opinion that I actually love AI with a caveat. So I'll get to that caveat in a moment. And if you haven't, I would like to ask if you can subscribe and also give me a like. I mean, you don't have to do that at the beginning of the video. That really helps out the channel, but it also notifies you if I make future videos, which I try to do fairly regularly. So I would love to have your like or subscribe. So let's dive into the central thing of why I love AI, and more specifically, local AI, especially local AI. So there's this big difference. There's this big sort of chasm forming in the AI world. And it's not apparent to a lot of people yet, but I think it's going to become much more apparent soon. And that is the rift between AI that's in the cloud at big data centers and AI that runs on local, everyday machines and devices. And right now, the gap is there because a lot of local AI, local devices that we carry around every day aren't yet quite powerful enough to really run AI comparably to what's in the data centers, what happens there. So that is changing, though. That is changing rapidly. It's changing because the AI models are becoming better. Some of the models that now can run on reasonable, like mid-level hardware, are actually pretty close to what runs on cloud hardware. Not quite, but pretty close. And it's getting better and better all of the time, while meanwhile, the hardware is also getting better and better. So it's really worth having a discussion rather than just thinking AI is either good or AI is bad, especially many of the reasons people think AI is bad is because of all of the horrible stuff around data centers. Like where I used to go to school in Utah, there's a proposed data center there now that if that goes in, that will apparently suck as much water out of the ground or the local streams or whatever as the entire Wasatch Front area. That means like Salt Lake City and all of its surrounding cities. This data center would use as much or more water as is used by the entire population of what's called the Wasatch Front. And that could be a big problem, right? And I think a lot of us see the problems with that. And what I'm here to point out is really two things. One is it doesn't have to be that problem. Like AI has other problems, and I think there are other reasons that, we can talk about the other problems with AI, like taking jobs. I think that's also kind of a hype thing. But with this problem of data centers, like we don't have to be doing AI in data centers. Like the hardware is getting better and better, and the models are getting better and better. And soon those are going to converge to where 80 or 90% of AI use could run on local machines. And I'm going to talk about why I think that's actually a good thing. And since this channel is a lot about like human development and the bigger picture of what's going on, you might say, well, why a technical video? Well, first of all, because I'm a geek and I just love technical stuff. But secondly, there is a connection to the bigger picture of what's going on. I really think AI, whether you love it or hate it or are an in-betweener like me who thinks it has good aspects and it has some pretty negative aspects. And let's, try to find the balance between those things. So that AI is a forcing function for change in consciousness in humanity. For us realizing that we have been off track in one particular way. I just did a whole online presentation about this. And the thing is, we humans rely way too much on our rational reasoning minds because that's what we have all been trained to do in our education, in our schooling system, to rely on reasoning. And that is the tool. That is the ultimate thing that we should rely upon for everything. Except that now AI can do some of that reasoning stuff better than we humans can. Like, reasoning is really just pattern recognition. And it's putting different patterns together in like a series of statements. Like, if I do this, then this happens. And if that happens, then this usually happens. That's what reasoning is. It's just recognizing those patterns and codifying them into some kind of language or thinking process in our minds. And so we've been taught that that is the be-all, end-all. And the more education you have, the more you're taught that. Becoming like a scientist in academia, I became super attuned to reasoning, and all that feeling stuff, ooh, that's uncomfortable and icky. Our imagination, no, that's nowhere to be seen. Our intuition, no, that's just all that woo-woo far out stuff. Forget all of these other faculties that we have. And by the way, slight pitch here, I actually teach a course on this called Core Intelligence, which teaches you how to tune into the other faculties, including your intuition, to actually get more direction and more clarity about things that are important to you. And if you're interested in hearing more about that, just send a note in the comments or send me an email. Super easy to find, morgan@scifoundry.com. And anyway, so I never meant to give a pitch, but I never talk about all of the work that I do, like Core Intelligence. So I thought it was fair game to like mention that, since I actually work with people on that. Anyway, so the AI is exposing to us the flaw in relying on only reasoning, because AI is getting better and better at doing that in a way that we humans can't match, and one day may fully exceed us in that. But the thing that I have realized is that it does not and cannot account for the other faculties that we have, our feeling faculties, which are way more nuanced and complex and deep and information rich than just the thinking faculties, but also our imagination, which is very rich and powerful, and the intuition, which gives so much information and potentially guidance and clarity. AI doesn't have any of those three. Why aren't we talking more about like leaning into the three that we have as humans that AI does not have, and let the grunt work of reasoning through everything go to AI, except when it's fun for us. When we're solving a puzzle, it's not necessarily fun to have AI do it. Or for certain kinds of writing, I don't like AI doing it because I like writing it out. So, but then there are other kinds of writing where I don't want to do that writing. Like if I have to fill out some kind of form, as an example, or do some kind of form letter for a purpose, I love having AI help me write that much more quickly, because I'm not getting any joy out of that kind of writing. That's perfect for AI to think through that, to reason through that, and do a halfway reasonable job that I always have to edit anyway. But it's much better than just doing that all from scratch myself. So if we start thinking about, hey, where can I actually offload the stuff that I don't enjoy doing, that I'm doing with reasoning alone, but it's not like a fun puzzle reasoning. It's not like figuring things out that I want to figure out or pursuing my curiosity reasoning. It's just boring reasoning of like, oh yeah, I have to do this, and then I have to do this. That's perfect for AI. It can take that off of our load, our space of things we're doing, and free us to do things that are more interesting, and that, if we look at our feeling layer, that light us up, that make us feel awesome, inspired, engaged, challenged, curious. So that's in general why I love AI. And it's making us feel like, oh no, we're going to lose all our jobs. No, we're not going to lose all our jobs, because AI can't do those other things. It's just we don't talk about those other things, those other faculties. And so everybody's like, oh no, it's going to be smarter than us. Yeah, who cares? I've known really smart people, really smart people who are highly dysfunctional. And some people would say, have said that I'm a smart person, and according to an IQ test, that is true. But it hasn't helped me. There are so many cases where being smart just causes more and more mental loops, mental exhaustion, just overanalysis, overthinking everything. It's not actually always helpful in life to be smart. So, anyway, back to why I love AI and local AI is that we can delegate these things, but it also highlights what does make us human and the things that AI can't do. And I think paying more attention to that can be really helpful. And then offloading the things that AI can do that we don't want to do, that we're kind of bored with. Because our whole work, I didn't mean to go this deep, but man, I get started on a topic like this. And yeah, I can go into it. Like our whole work life in this world is so much built around just grinding through BS that who wants to do that shit? Seriously. Like so much of it is bullshit. So much of the work is just that all of us do is just make work that we're not here spending our precious time on the planet to do. And now people are like, oh no, the jobs are going away. Well, maybe the make work jobs are going away, and this will force us to find more meaningful work that is personally meaning to us. Now, I understand that in the current economy, that work that's meaningful to us is not rewarded. But this current economy is kind of teetering on the brink of some kind of epic something. I don't want to say certain words because I just don't want to spread fear. I'm not here to spread fear. But I do think our economic system is due for an overhaul. I'll just say that. It is long past overdue. It has been kept on life support ever since the 2008 economic crisis, 2008 through 2011. But even since then, since 2011, it has been kept on life support in various ways. And it is overdue for overhaul. And when we overhaul it, then we can actually address these underlying problems of actually saying, oh, wait, we don't need to be doing all that menial work that AI can do anyway. But there's a lot of I meant meaningless work in what I just said. The meaningless work, because there's a lot of meaningful work and pursuits that we can individually do. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we got to a true 4-hour workday or even a 2-hour workday where there's only 2 hours of actual quote work, stuff that we don't really want to be doing. And the rest of the work is doing stuff that lights us up, that's still challenging, that still contributes meaningfully to other people and to society, but that lights us up and that is exciting and engaging and interesting. I think the world is headed there. And I think AI is part of how we are heading there. It's not the whole story, but it is part of it. And so, to me, bring it on. Yes, there are concerns. We should put guardrails on it, no doubt. And I'm looking forward to the day when we can have a real discussion politically about putting guardrails on how it develops and who's in charge of its development. All valid points. But the point today that I'll bring it back to is that if you are an AI proponent in the big picture like I am, that's in the big picture, but you're concerned about the specifics like the data centers and the power use, this local AI stuff is awesome. And I'm going to just show you briefly if I can. I had a thing where I could switch over. Yes, yay, okay. So there we go. So I'm just going to show you this running locally on this machine. So the machine I'm running this on is a Mac M3 Ultra Studio. So it's not a low-level machine, but it is just a local machine that sits in a little box that's quite power efficient, and it's just a little bit bigger than like a Mac Mini. And I can say something like, well, I won't do anything complex. Hello, are you human? Okay, now this model over here is already loaded, and you can see this thing that says processing prompt. Now, what's interesting about this running these locally is a model like this. You can see how it works, and to me, it's so intriguing. I love diving under the hood of how things work. And so it first was processing the prompt, and now it's generating tokens over here, which are, they're like words. They're not exactly the same thing as words, but close enough. And so it's generating a bunch of tokens, and some of this is thinking. And then it thought about it for a while, and then it spit out an answer. Hello. No, I'm not human. I'm an AI assistant. Okay, so that's just a super basic demonstration of a local model. There are a couple reasons why I like these local models. Now, you may have noticed this is slower than, let's say, one of the things like ChatGPT or Claude. So when I use a cloud model, I mostly use Claude at this point. And it is faster, no doubt. If I'm in a hurry, if I'm in a rush, then sometimes I'll go to that. But this can be pretty fast. And this is not a small model. This one is actually this one is 130 gigabytes model. There are much smaller models that do run faster than this. Like for a simple thing like hello, I could run a 30 gigabyte model and get answers that are just about as quick as Claude. But I actually think that's a benefit, because one of the things that this does, I've noticed, is it forces me to slow down and think about what I'm asking of the AI, which is really important, because I think these big models from the cloud-based data set, cloud-based services, they lull us into this idea because they have enough reasoning capacity that they can act pretty smart. And I mean, the one that I'm running here can act pretty smart, but not quite as smart. But they also are super fast. So it kind of induces a kind of laziness of like, oh, well, I'll just, put a bunch of junk into the AI and then have it sorted out. And I've literally done that. But that leads to sloppy thinking. And it leads to this perpetual rush that all of us are in, which is like, why? Why are we all in a rush all of the time? It's like this mass psychosis we're in. We don't need answers right away. Like if this was a human assistant, that let's say I was on Slack and I had a human assistant and I sent a message on Slack. Do I literally expect a response within 2 seconds, an extensive response within 2 seconds? Not even close. And is the response, if it comes back in 2 seconds, going to actually be a good response? Well, probably not. So this slows everything down, gets me thinking about it, and also gets me sort of patiently reflecting as the AI produces its answer, which often, again, can be anywhere from a few seconds to, if I get into a really long chat, it might take a minute or two. But still, like, isn't that miraculous? Like, how can we be so impatient that we're like, oh no, faster, better all the time? I mean, this is why we have the problems like big data centers going in everywhere, because there's this collective psychosis of everything has to be faster, more efficient, and whatever all of the time. It's kind of ridiculous. Now, when I said more efficient, actually this local AI is way more power efficient. I saw one number. I have not verified the number, but I saw one number quoted that it is 10 times more power efficient. What I do know is a query like this requires very minimal energy to do on my local Mac Studio. It does require some, but it's minimal. And by the way, it heats my house, at least in the winter, just a little bit, not enough to replace a heater by any means. Okay, so that's much more power efficient. But my point is that forcing us to slow down is a good thing. The other thing is you can build these local AIs into local agents. So I've been exploring another tool called Hermes Agent, which is really cool, some of the menial stuff it can take off of your hands. I mean, it's still developing technology, and it's not, right now, it's not for the faint of heart. But if you run something like Hermes Agent, one of the things it does is it eats through tokens. What I mean by that is lots and lots of words going back and forth between the agent and the AI. Lots and lots. Like hundreds of thousands to millions of those going back and forth, back and forth. So if you're paying for a cloud-based AI, you can end up paying for a lot very quickly. With local AI, you're not paying anything more than a few cents extra for electricity. So, and these local agents are pretty cool. And you can really delegate menial tasks with it. And especially, I don't feel like if there's some menial task, a form to fill out or some simple form letter, why send this off to a big data center, to this super overpowered AI that runs on these big chips and has all of those issues, to just do something like write a simple email? It's overkill. It's like having a V8 engine on your bicycle. It's just kind of silly. So I think the other thing is local AI really makes you think for yourself a bit more. It just reminds you that this is just a program running here on your computer. It's not some all-knowing oracle in the cloud. It's just another program. It's a very fancy program. It can do more stuff than any previous programs could do, but it has plenty of flaws and limitations and needs guardrails. And having it run locally really reminds of that. Like seeing what's happening when it's running, you're like, oh yeah, this is just a program. And sometimes it crashes and you're like, that's silly. We never see that as end users of the cloud services. So I think it's a pretty cool thing. And I am a real proponent of these local AIs. If you want to get started, this tool that I've been showing, which I realized I didn't take it off the screen yet, this tool right here is LM Studio. And LM Studio is a place where you can actually go in. You can browse all of the free downloadable models. This is I have a particular one on search, but this is a list of hundreds and hundreds of models that you can choose from and just download to your computer. Now you have to be aware of like how much memory you have available and things like that. Not all of them can run. There are many that can't even run on my Mac Studio M3 Ultra, which is, still a pretty highly capable machine. Not all of them can run on that. But there are a lot of options here and more coming out every day. And it's just so cool to download them. And by the way, if you are running on a Mac, you can select this thing called MLX, which is our ones that are designed specifically to run more efficiently on the Mac hardware and to run quite fast. And again, if you're a Mac person, this is some of the best consumer grade hardware for running AI models. It runs very efficiently and fast here, with one caveat. I think I'll talk about that separately. So, I'll just briefly mention it. Okay, so the caveat is that if you have very long contexts and you don't handle those properly, especially using KV caching, it's basically caching your prior prompts, it can get pretty slow on prompt processing for long prompts. So that's somewhere where you really start to notice it's local. But for shorter tasks, it can be awesome. Anyway, so that's how to run it. So this is LM Studio, and this over here is OpenWebUI, which is an interface program. You can start a chat inside of LM Studio itself. You can just go here and start chatting with your model. But it doesn't have the capability to do things like web search or a lot of other more complex things. And OpenWebUI is much more like some of the popular services from the cloud services. So OpenWebUI is a great way to go if you're really interested in exploring local models. And you don't actually have to have LM Studio if you download OpenWebUI. All you have to do is just download it, and then you can go in and actually download models within your OpenWebUI settings. You just go into settings, and there's a place there where you can download models. So it's really cool, and I think it's the wave of the future. Even if you currently don't have hardware that's quite ready to run very big models locally, at the current pace of technology, we will likely very soon all have stuff that can run these models locally. So I'll wrap this up by just saying I am not an AI hater. I do think that there are some problems with AI, and we need to address those problems. And by running locally, that addresses one of the big problems with AI. And I actually think when we've addressed some of the problems, the real problems with AI, AI can be a beneficial thing for humanity. So I'll just end on that note. Thanks for being here. And again, if you enjoyed the video, please give a like, give that subscribe, and I will see you soon.